Well, I think over the past 32 years, ever since China started to open and develop, when Deng Xiaoping re-emerged as the paramount leader, average growth rate of China's GDP has been about 9% for 30 years in a row. And the Chinese economic situation has really achieved a fundamental and profound transformation of itself. And by now, China is the second largest economy in the world. And most likely, in a matter of 1 or 2 decades, China may be surpassing the United States and become the largest economy in the world. So this speaks for itself as to the transformation as well as the rapid speed in which China is developing its economy. And also, in my view, ever since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, it is the first time in any major country that industrialization, modernization, urbanization, and globalization are happening as we speak, almost simultaneously. And this indicates the accelerated pace of the development and also all these major themes of economic activities happening at the same time. Now, I don't think China likes to become a hegemon or a superpower if the term superpower is equated with a country which may be abusive of its dominant position in the world politically or economically by launching wars of aggression or interferes in other countries' internal affairs, etc. I think China's economy will keep growing at rapid speed for another 1 or 2 decades at least. So by definition, the Chinese economy, either on the nominal exchange rate or on a PPP readjusted rate, will become larger than the United States in a matter of 10 to 15 or no more than 20 years. So this is the momentum, and this may be inevitable process. And I think we are very focused in China on the peaceful development in China by emphasizing peace abroad as well as stability at home. If you look at China's import and export combined together, it accounts for about 60 to 65% of the economy. So if China resorts to any protectionist measures, it will hurt itself. It will become a self-defeating proposition. And I would say China need to rely upon major trading nations for a lot of import of raw materials, commodities and energies. So China is in a glass house in itself. It is not in its own interest to keep throwing stones at others. Protection of intellectual property right is very, very important. But don't forget, 10 years ago, the Chinese Constitution even did not have a phrase calling for the protection of property rights. So, intellectual property right in China is a new concept. And there are imperfections, and I think we need to do much more so to make sure that the RPR is fully protected. But if you look at the RPR situation in China today versus 10 years ago, it's much, much more improved. And I'm sure it will be in China's own interest as well as in the interest of its major trading partners to have much more improved protection of intellectual property. I think it will accelerate. Why? Because in China, we right now import about 200 million tons of crude oil every year, and the demand for energy is still increasing. It is simply unsustainable for us to keep relying on the traditional sources of energy like crude oil, and coal is very, very polluting, and we need to come up with new sources of energy, and especially in the area of solar and wind. China is already the leading manufacturer, and also Chinese government and the companies are very, very much focused on launching, let's say, e-bus as well as electric cars, etc. And this unfolding of the largest ever building effort of the fast speed train in China, which will be bigger than all the other mileage of fast speed train in the world combined, will be another major step forward in reducing the reliance on crude oil and shifting to lower carbon economy in China. Many people in the West come to the conclusion that in China we only have economic reform and there is no political reform. I actually don't agree with that, mainly because there has been political reform ever since the very beginning of the 30-year process. And but we need to make much more so in this regard, and we cannot be complacent with the political structure. On the other hand, I think by maintaining political stability is also very, very important in maintaining the overall economic development, because these two are related, but there is no saying that China has to adopt a completely different political system in order to sustain its economic development. Having said that, I would say the greater participation of the people by people in all walks of life in the political decision-making process is crucially important. And also anti-corruption will be very, very important. Greater accountability and transparency in the decision-making process will be very, very important. And people like us are constantly chasing that goal, and we are sure that given us time, we will make sure that the political system as we have today will be much more improved in the coming decades. I'm very much concerned about the possibility that the United States, which is the leading economy in the world, the only surviving superpower in the world, may not have come to terms with the prospect of a China rising peacefully to such an extent that it may eventually surpass the United States as an economy. Now, many people think that if China becomes the largest economy in the world, it will become a superpower, it will become a hegemon, it will abuse its dominant economic position in the world. I completely disagree with that, mainly because China's focus will be on economics, and China will have no desire to become a hegemon or abusive power in its international relations, and it will be in China's own interest as well as the rest of the world to maintain peace and stability both at home as well as abroad. That will be the precondition of the economic development of China. I think constructive engagement and dialogue and achieving a higher level of understanding and always pursue a win-win situation. The West, as we understand it, still is very, very superior in many respects, especially in the high-tech sector, and also it has many very good educational resources, etc. So by leveraging off on the tremendous growth momentum in China, the Western countries and the Western economies actually can create more jobs by working more closely with China, and also setting up joint ventures with major Chinese companies going forward will be a major breakthrough, I would say. It's not only aimed at capturing the domestic market in China, but also it will position both the Western companies as well as the Chinese companies in forming JV structures so that they can operate more effectively and more efficiently throughout the world. That, I think, will be a better way of engaging the Western economies and the Chinese economies in the future. It's a win-win proposition rather than a zero-sum game.